to another episode of Us Anxious Folk. My name is Lauren, I am your host, and I'm a little bit scratchy in the throat today, so apologies for any of that kind of noise. Today's episode, we're talking about the toll of anxiety on the body, which is a huge episode, I have to say. There's a lot to unpack with that, but first of all, I wanted to be clear and specify that when I talk about the toll of anxiety on the body, I'm not talking about the effect of short-term anxiety on the body. I think that's really important to sort of underline right away, because short-lived anxiety is going to feel bad. And that's expected. It's normal. It's by design. Anxiety itself feels bad physically and mentally, but it's not inherently bad. It's designed to keep us aware of our surroundings, to keep us aware of any threats to our survival, to our well-being, to keep us aware of what's important to us. And our bodies are very good at coming back into balance after this kind of anxiety. I also want to be really clear that anxiety is going to be accompanied by those really uncomfortable physical sensations, always. That's the point of it. It wouldn't be a very good anxiety response if it wasn't accompanied by that sort of physical distress that you feel in that moment. Because that's the thing that keeps us alert and keeps us aware of those threats to our well-being. So wanting anxiety or hoping for anxiety to not have any kind of physical counterpart or physical representation is, kind of setting ourselves up to fail. If we expect anxiety to feel okay, that's where we're going to sort of run into trouble. So what I am talking about in this episode is more about the effects of long-term anxiety on the body and what that can do to us. And this is something that Tara Brach calls the fear body. And I really like the way she puts that, because I think that that's such a perfect description of how we end up feeling like somebody else completely. When you felt anxiety for a long time with not much of a reprieve, you start to identify as someone completely different to the person you used to be. And for me, when I was housebound, I used to say to, friends and family, like, it feels like I'm a different person. And people would say, like, it's all in your head, it's just your thoughts, it's just anxiety, all that kind of thing, which is all well-intentioned and well-meaning and true to a degree. But you really do become somebody else. And I could never quite describe that in a way that I felt like people could understand. But the best way that I can put it is that I used to wake up anxiety disorder diagnosis, feeling not over-identified with my own body. And what I mean by that is I would be able to sense what was happening in my body, like, for example, waking up with a sore throat, or feeling really tired because I'd had a late night the night before, or like having been to the gym and noticing that my muscles were really sore. I'd be able to sense that and I'd be able to feel it, but it didn't impact me going about my daily life in any real way, besides the fact that I was aware of it. And I could kind of override my body to a degree where, like, even if I had sore muscles or even if I was really tired or had a sore throat, I could still go about my day with no real issue, besides like probably complaining about how I felt. But yeah, not being like overly impacted by it. Compare that to when I was housebound and, covered in anxiety. I would wake up and I would just instantly be unable to be in my own skin. and within 20 minutes of waking up, I would be running to the bathroom to eject the liquid fear from my bowels. And then there'd be all kinds of things like stomach cramps, and like that electric feeling in your body, that like constant electric feeling, kind of like a noise that you can feel but you can't hear, if that makes any sense. I couldn't override that, or I couldn't override those feelings because I couldn't exist within them. I couldn't peacefully be in myself. So when you can't be here, how can you be anywhere else? So it really did feel like I had suddenly become this completely other version of Lauren that just couldn't get past how I felt, because how I felt was so overwhelming and so loud and intense and just electric that I couldn't do it. I didn't have room for anything else that I could be aware of. I've lived with this for long enough now, like it's been over a decade now, and I have experienced, feeling quote unquote normal for long enough now also that I know the difference, and I know that it is a noticeable difference. So I have those days where I still wake up as that fear body, or in that fear body, I should say. And I know how different that is to waking up in a body that feels, just comfortable and like unremarkable, really. And that's the funny thing. Like that's what I was longing for back then. It wasn't like I was wanting to feel at like my peak of physical health. I just wanted to feel unremarkable. Like I just wanted to feel like a baseline level of normal rather than feeling like amazing. I was like, I just don't want to feel this bad. So yeah, those days when you wake up and you're in that fear body, or, you might have had years where you've been in that fear body every single day. I know how that feels, and it is the physical embodiment of fear, of no, like I can't do this, I can't be this, I can't feel this, I can't do anything else until I fix the way that I'm feeling internally. The really difficult part is that we can spend a long time living in this fear body, or like not living is probably the more accurate way to put it. We talked in the beginning about how the body is really good at like swinging back into that, that state of balance after a period of short-lived stress or anxiety. So all the changes that occur during the anxiety response, like, that like hyper awareness, that hyper focus on the negative, so the negativity bias, the digestive disturbances, which is what occurs when the body deems that moment as not safe enough to focus on digestion. So digestive systems, I should say, kind of are like temporarily shut down or paused. Same thing with the immune system. And then you have like the sweating and the muscle contraction, the tension, the tight jaw, the tight neck, the tight shoulders because you're holding yourself, the sweating, the dizziness from like changes in your blood pressure, the changes in your vision, in light, in your awareness. All of those changes undo basically when the anxiety response is calmed down. So digestion resumes, immune function does its normal thing, your muscles release, you have that like relaxed sense of focus, and there's that kind of like sense of being like soft, that sense of like gentle being where you can just like be in your body and it's fine, and to swing between those two states is normal. Like that's what we are designed to do as human beings. But to stay in that fear body state, that's when the physical toll of anxiety becomes really really distressing and disturbing, and that's when we start to really experience dysfunction on a large scale within ourselves. In my very unprofessional opinion, being that I'm not a doctor or a therapist or any of those fancy kind of things, I think that there are two reasons for this, as to why we kind of stay in this fear state. I think that the first reason is habit. Human beings are designed to repeat what we repeat. So if you do something often enough, it just becomes your default, your autopilot. And I know that there was a lot of anxiety for me that became my sort of default habitual day-to-day patterning. And I think the body, well, I know the body learns this, and the body then repeats it. Again, this is by design. We're supposed to be able to commit more resources to important things rather than like remembering the same shit every single day. So the more we do something, the more we do it, and the easier it is for us to do that without thinking about it. And so I think that fear state becomes a habitual one because of the fact that we've been in it for so long. And the other aspect to staying in the fear body, the other reason I think we tend to hang out there, is self-perpetuated. What I mean is that we ignite the fear response because we've experienced the fear response out of context. And that only needs to happen once for us to go, what the fuck was that? So, thinking about in my own life, when I first experienced a panic attack, it was such a jarring experience and so overwhelming and so inexplicable. Like there was no real reason for it. And so my body became really heightened to the possibility of that happening again because of how much I didn't want it to happen again. And so because of that, I, unbeknownst to me, was igniting that fear response, igniting that stress response within my own body because I'm trying so hard not to feel that fear response. So a lot of it is unintentional, and it's not a conscious thing, but because we are designed more to err on the side of caution, because we are designed to focus on the threat and the danger more than the safety and the ease, because we are feeling creatures who are attempting to move towards what we want by zeroing in on what we don't want, we incidentally keep our body afraid of feeling afraid because of how awful it feels. Again, this isn't a conscious choice. It's not something that we think about doing. It happens on a biochemical level, and it's nothing to do with our conscious mind. It's nothing to do with, what we choose for ourselves. It just happens without really our knowledge. But our bodies are pretty intelligent in that way, and we are supposed to swing between those two states, as I already mentioned. It's supposed to be like, feeling heightened arousal and then feeling calm, and then feeling heightened arousal and then feeling calm, and then, a little bit in between both. When I was writing my notes for this episode and really thinking about what might be the reason for this like need to stay in that fear body, the word that kept coming up for me was animal. Like the animal of our bodies. We are these animal creatures, and we respond to fear like every other animal creature. But we're also the only ones who are trying to escape that response. We are the ones trying to moderate how much of our own animal being that we show to one another. And I really think that a lot of the association with the fear body is this resistance to feeling extreme discomfort that comes along with being a living creature in this time and space. And when you think about it, this is something that we've been taught from the very beginning. like we shush our children when they're being too loud in a public space. We tell each other to calm down. We say shit like, don't get hysterical. There's nothing to be afraid of. We tone it down in so many ways. And I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but I think there is something to be said for how much we try to contain ourselves until it gets to a point where we are unable to feel contained within ourselves. Like we're being so quiet that our insides start screaming. Like every cell in our body starts screaming because we're trying so hard to silence everything. Yeah. It's like our whole body is alight with like sensation, and we're just walking down the supermarket aisle thinking, please don't panic, please be normal, please don't shoot yourself. Just like trying everything we can to just like hold it in. But yeah, I know a little bit off topic there, but at least it's a bit of food for thought. To come back to the toll of anxiety on the body, the biggest impact for me, and I think for so many of us, is that sense of not being able to exist inside of yourself. Like the inability to live in the world because of how awful you feel inside, because of how hard it is to live inside yourself. But to list some of the other impacts of long-term anxiety on the body, there's also grinding your teeth, a tense jaw, the headaches you can get from that, sleep disturbances, which can come in all kinds of flavors and experiences. So insomnia, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, having those nocturnal panic attacks where you wake up in a cold sweat, and you were not even conscious of it. You just suddenly wake up panicking, wanting to just stay in bed and keep sleeping, oversleeping. All you want to do is sleep because it's the only time you feel like you can really escape the way you're feeling. Tight muscles, restless legs, digestive issues. Again, a lot to unpack with that. Things like IBS, nausea, that constant like sick feeling, that dizzy feeling inside of yourself. Things like diarrhea, things like constipation, things like cramps, and like gas and stomach noises, and like everything that can happen in the digestive area, indigestion, heartburn, all those fun things. That sense of disreality that starts to kind of follow you around. Hair loss, impacts on the immune system, impacts on the menstrual cycle for females, impacts on your sex life, not wanting to be touched, not wanting to touch someone else, or going in the opposite direction, wanting to have lots and lots of sex because you just want to feel something else. A loss of pleasure, sensory issues, issues with light and noise, inability to focus, weight changes, weight loss, weight gain, appetite issues, losing your appetite, or again going the opposite way, binge eating and feeling hungry all the time, fear around eating certain foods, whether or not that cup of coffee is going to make you panic, whether or not the gluten is going to make you sick, clothing issues. This kind of comes under the sensory umbrella, but for me, clothing was a big way that anxiety started to impact my body, in terms of like restrictive clothing became really unbearable, and could cause me to panic, feeling like I needed to hide myself as well. So like not wanting to wear restricted clothing, but wanting to be completely covered. That and also kind of like not knowing how to dress myself. Like I've never been particularly stylish, but just not knowing what the fuck to wear because I'm not in any way focused on that. I can't focus on that, and so it's like I just don't know how to dress myself. And then attitude as well, like frustration, tension, that sense of like no. I wrote about this in my book, but you become someone who just says no to everything. And, you don't even mean to do it, but you do it. You shut things down before they're even a spark of possibility. You're just instantly like, no, because you know that it's going to feel really hard to do it. And so you just shut it down straight away. I'm sure there's lots of things that I've missed in terms of the impact of anxiety, long-term anxiety on the body, but for me, these were the main ones. And I mean, you only have to hear that list to go, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot to deal with. And it really was unbearable. And some days when it rears up again, it still feels unbearable. It's like no stone was left unturned in the anxiety process. And that was really difficult to deal with. It felt really depressing and really bleak, and I didn't know how to get out of that. Everything I was trying not to feel became everything I was constantly feeling. Everything was intertwined, and I felt like I couldn't get a break from any of it. I'm still learning how to befriend the fear body, as Tara Brach likes to say, befriend and attend. I think I will always be learning. I kind of spoke to that a little bit in the last episode where I talked about falling down and getting back up and saying that, that quote that resonated with me about a heart still learning to be unafraid of itself. I think I'm always going to be learning that, but I've had a lot of time to play around with the idea and the concept of the fear body, and I've gained a really huge amount of respect for the intelligence of the human body and the way that it protects itself by shutting down in a way at the same time as becoming hyper alert and hyper aroused about everything. I think that this respect for the body is kind of step one in learning how to heal from the long-term effects of anxiety. Like, just understanding that it's a process and that it's an unlearning as much as it is a learning, and it's complex and it's beautiful as much as it is uncomfortable and chemical and unavoidable, really. At the core of my whole journey with anxiety has been learning to just have a willingness to be with it, and then to want to delve further into it. You can't change something that you aren't willing to acknowledge, and you can't know something that you aren't really willing to explore from every angle. Exploring the toll of anxiety on the body from the angle of having lived with it for years is by far the shittiest part of it all. Like, leaning into how crappy it feels to have all those long-term physical effects. There's no way to dress that up. Like, it feels shitty, and it's going to feel shitty. But if you felt that, if you found yourself there, then you have to know that there is a flip side to it. You have to know that this isn't just what it is now. Like, you're not just always going to be this person who always feels this way forever. You still do have the ability to swing back in the other direction. You're capable of experiencing peace as well as huge amounts of distress and discomfort, even if that feels so unattainable right now. And I can tell you that with certainty because I do experience that. Like, I experience going back the other way. And when I do, it's like, it's everything. But before I bang on and on about what I know you're capable of, I'm trying to remember to make these episodes helpful and actionable. So I have some ideas on how you can learn to befriend the fear body, how you can learn to kind of mitigate the effects of long-term anxiety of the body, And these are things that are going to look different for everyone, but I think that there are some like baseline ideas that we can probably agree on. And the first one, besides having that like willingness to explore, the crappiness of long-term anxiety, is the knowledge that your body will follow your lead. And unfortunately, what that means for those of us who are waiting for our anxiety to fuck off before we get out there and live our lives, it means we're going to be waiting forever. We're going to be feeling the effects of fear on the body for as long as we are willing to avoid feeling fear in the body. And that's really frustrating, I know, because when you look around and see that other people are able to like go about their day feeling what seems to be like minimal discomfort, and then, your body's like throwing every sensation of doom at you before it's even 7 a.m., you can end up feeling that thing of like, why me again? Like, why is it so hard for me? But just put that aside for now and know that you're not going to feel physically better until you give your body the opportunity to feel physically better. And probably the quickest way to do that is to change your environment. We respond to our environment on a chemical level, and I know that there are going to be some of you who are thinking, but if I change my environment, I am going to experience a huge increase in anxiety. If I had told housebound Lauren that she needed to go for a long walk in the woods in order to feel better, housebound Lauren would have been like, that's not going to happen. Like, I wouldn't be housebound if I could go for a long walk in the woods. Yes, your anxiety will initially increase when you change your environment, because you've convinced your body that anything that increases physical discomfort is the enemy. Let me put it to you this way. Each safeguard that you put up as a way to not feel, so for example, avoidance, staying home, staying with your safe person, not driving on the motorway, whatever it may be, each one of these is like a brick that you place on your body. It's a weight that you've added in order to stay safe and to stay put. But there's only so many bricks that you can put on your body before you realize that you can't breathe. The tension and the pressure and the distress you create by trying to carry these bricks on your physical body in order to stay safe, this is what's making you feel more than you've ever felt before. You wanted to not feel discomfort, and yet now you are feeling the most discomfort that you've ever felt. So yes, removing these safeguards one by one is going to feel scary and you're going to feel ungrounded, but it's ultimately going to feel far less uncomfortable than the weight of being trapped under all those limitations and rules. So yes, initially it'll feel like a lot, but when you change your environment, you're giving your body the opportunity to change its internal environment in response. I would say that the best place to do that would be to take yourself out somewhere in nature. There's a peace in nature that I think we are really easily able to attune to. There's like this really, there's like a rhythm that we are able to connect to and regulate ourselves with, that our bodies respond really, really well to. So my recommendation would be to take yourself out for a walk every day, or, take yourself somewhere outside where you can be amongst the trees and the breeze and the birds and like the liveliness of it all. But you know yourself best, and you'll know what your happy place is. And if nature isn't it for you, then that's fine. Take yourself to your happy place as often as you can every day, if possible, and stay there long enough to give your body the opportunity to relate to that environment. You will notice a change in your physiology that is different from the fear state, and it might feel uncomfortable because it is different, initially at least. It might only be like a split second or a few minutes that you feel that different state of being, but you nurture it and you encourage it. It's like a kid that you're, trying to learn to ride a bike without their training wheels. Like, you know that they're going to fall and you know that they're going to get a scraped knee or two, but you still encourage them because you know that if they show up and keep doing it and keep trying, then eventually they're going to be able to ride a bike freely. So you need to take yourself out and encourage yourself and nurture that change of state as often as you can, and do your best not to run away from how different it feels. Kind of need to learn that different isn't necessarily a bad thing. In our case, if we're someone who's been living in the fear body for a long time, feeling different is going to be a good thing. The next thing that I think is going to be really helpful is connection. As well as being able to connect to our environment, our bodies have the awesome ability to connect to other human beings, to mirror their emotional states. We flourish when we are within a community, and when we connect with other human beings, our bodies do some really cool things. We're able to receive huge benefits relating to well-being, relating to resilience, relating to even like our immune response is going to be impacted positively by social connection. And it doesn't even need to be like actual physical touch, although physical touch can be really, really helpful. It can literally just be eye contact or just speaking to another person, ideally in the same environment as that other person. Connecting online can be helpful, but there are drawbacks. Obviously, there are caveats with this, like you want it to be a positive connection, not a negative one. And also the same goes for connecting with animals as well. So that's not to discount the benefits that we receive from connecting with, your dog or your cat or your horse or whatever animal you choose to connect with. But I think connection is something that is really overlooked when it comes to anxiety, because so much of anxiety is a shutting off and is that contraction and that like shying away and wanting to pull away, so that we know we should connect and we know we want to connect, but we pull away from it deliberately because of how our anxiety feels. But so again, that's going to be a way to mitigate those long-term effects of stress and anxiety on the body by connecting with another human being and sort of presenting ourselves to a supportive and nurturing community as we are, and being accepted is going to help us to accept how we feel, which is then going to help us to change how we ultimately feel. I feel like there are a really long list of things that can also help with, the long-term effect of anxiety on the body. And these are things that you already know. I know you already know them. Things like sleep, laughter, exercise, creativity, probably like vitamins and supplements that I'm not schooled enough to speak to, so I won't say anything more about that. But like the general things that we know are good for us are the things that are going to be good for us. But I feel like those things are more or less like inaccessible or don't really have as much of an impact as they should when we are going around unwilling to be with our body how it is. So when we are trying everything we can to get out of that fear state and to not feel the fear in our body, I feel like that's when we aren't able to get the same benefits from those things that would otherwise help us with our well-being. So if you aren't willing to get to know your body and to get to know how it feels right now in this moment and to kind of open yourself to that, then I don't know how much success you can have in swinging the pendulum back the other way from being in that long-term fear state. Because ultimately I think it's the belief that what we are feeling is wrong, and that that like automatic pushing against it that we do. I think that's what keeps us stuck in that physical embodiment of fear. And it's not our fault, and it's completely understandable that we end up there. But there really needs to be that willingness to just feel awful and to not restrain it or change it or moderate it, to just really embody it and feel it and give voice to it before we can actually start to feel at home within ourselves again. And on that note, I feel like maybe an exercise that would be helpful, if this appeals to you in any way, would be to sit yourself down somewhere quiet, and just, if you can, tune into your body and just ask yourself, what is it that your body needs to feel seen and heard and held? And just listen for the answer. And if you're open to sharing what came up, I'd love to hear it. But yeah, maybe sometimes we just need to be willing to be with the animal of our bodies, as I think, is that the Mary Oliver poem? I think it might be. Wild geese, the soft animal of your body. Yeah, I think we just need to be with the extreme discomfort that we feel as human beings and be willing to look at it and face it in order to start feeling something different. I hope this episode was helpful. I'm going to wrap this up now because I'm very tired of talking. Not in that way, but just like my throat hurts. So yeah, I hope you're all doing well, and thank you for all the love and support on the last episode. I really appreciate the connections that I make with you guys, and I'm very thankful to be in the company of such like genuine and lovely people. So yeah, thanks. I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Us Anxious Folk podcast, the podcast for the chronically overwhelmed, perpetually panicked, anxious folk in all of us. If you would like to find more about me, you can find me on YouTube at Lauren Rose or on Instagram at LaurenR_Rose.